Hey everybody, it's Jay from the Black Sheep Diaries. I hope you're doing okay today. Hey, what's your favorite planet? Mine's the sun, because it's like the king of all planets. Hey, what about that mad cow coronado disease that's been going around? It's been here for a while, and it doesn't seem to be going away. Your thoughts? Just say yes and we'll move on. Oh my God. Hello and welcome to the Black Sheep Diaries, where we talk about everything relating to being the black sheep of your family. Today, y'all, we're going to talk about something different, kind of related. I did a previous video letting y'all know that I was out doing some metal detecting and why I was doing that. So this video here is I'm going to show you one of the coolest finds that I've found so far. I've been doing it for about 1.5 years, and I'm going to show you one of the coolest finds that I've found, and it was recently that I found it. And to me, it's just super cool. So I thought I'd share it with y'all. It's Easter Sunday here. It's a dreary day in Georgia. It's a weird Easter Sunday. I thought I'd break out the rainbow afro for the occasion here on a new historic video venturing into history, which is why I go metal detecting, to touch base with our ancestors and find out about our history and, you know, what our ancestors were doing. I'm fascinated with it. That's kind of where the spiritual journey has led me, and I talk about that in a previous video where I'm out in the woods, you know, going metal detecting. So anyway, I wore the rainbow afro today, y'all. This thing is hilarious. It's a long story to how I got this. I've had it for over 20 years, since before I started my business. And there's a reason I bought it, and the reason I bought it ended up changing, and I ended up using it for kind of head protection while snowboarding when I was younger. Still old, but when I was fit and could snowboard, I used to go up to North Carolina, Maggie Valley, and snowboard, and it was my son's favorite thing, so we would go up there. It was the quickest place I could get to snowboard, and I just love snowboarding. I grew up skateboarding a little bit, you know, roller skating. Then I, very young, learned how to surf, and then as an adult learned how to snowboard. As an old man, learned how to snowboard and loved it. Just loved it. I could flip around each direction and, you know, ride switch and all that. I'm a goofy footer. But anyway, I used to wear this snowboarding, and it made everybody crack up. And I've worn it on so many occasions and embarrassed so many people with this, y'all. It's hilarious. I've just embarrassed so many people with this thing. I've taken it out on the beach with an old girlfriend that didn't think I knew how to surf, and I rented a surfboard in Myrtle Beach, and I wore this out on the beach, and it was the funniest thing you ever saw, y'all. I've embarrassed so many people. When I put this on, people run like hell. They don't want to be anywhere near it. It freaks them out. It's hilarious, the effect this afro has on everybody, the rainbow afro. So I love it. I haven't worn it in years, so I thought I'd put it on today since this was kind of a gloomy Easter Sunday and dipping into some history. And honestly, I never got into history as a kid. I hated history because nobody ever made it fun. No teachers ever made it fun for me. So I hated history. I couldn't remember dates of anything, or wars, or when they were started. I just couldn't care less about history as a young man. So as an older man now, I'm fascinated with it. And I thought I would wear this just to fun it up a little bit. Y'all, I'm not trying to be an idiot here. I just thought I'd wear this because it cracks people up. Maybe somebody would have fun and listen to the history lesson that I'm going to give today. Because that's what today's episode's about, is a history lesson on what I think is my coolest find yet, metal detecting. And it's really neat. So I wanted to share it with y'all today. So, without further ado, let's see here. What it is it's a pocket watch fob. Back in the day, pocket watches were everything. All the way, they date back to the, I'm not sure the specifics, y'all. I'm not a historian. I need to get that clear right now. I'm not a historian. I'm not a teacher. I'm a ding-a-ling idiot old man that goes metal detecting for fun. And this thing I found, this pocket watch fob, I had no idea what it was. And it took me several weeks just to find out what it was online. And usually I can find out pretty quick from the stuff I find. And it's always a fun history lesson, and that's part of why I do it. But this was unique, and I couldn't figure out what the hell it was for the longest time. And I finally stumbled upon something that led me down a really cool rabbit hole, and I wanted to share it with you because it's to me it's the coolest thing I've ever found yet, metal detecting. And I found it recently. They were doing some work by the interstate, near where I live in Georgia, and I saw them bulldozing up a bunch of land one day, driving down the highway. And, this was just a couple months ago. And I thought that'd be a good place to go. Anytime they're tearing up land, bulldozing old land is a good time to metal detect because they turn up stuff that's been buried in the ground for years. And sometimes it's a little closer to the top and you can find it. So I went out on this one day and parked right on the side of the interstate. Not sure if I was going to be okay with my vehicle there, but I thought I'd be all right because there's a lot of construction vehicles around, but it was a Sunday or something and nobody was working, so I thought I'd be okay, and I was. But I went in the woods. I didn't find anything where they were bulldozing, and I ended up venturing off into the woods, and I found an old rock chimney. Not brick chimney at all, old rocks, and here in Georgia, y'all, it's just red clay everywhere. At least in the central part of Georgia, north central part of Georgia, north of Atlanta, in Atlanta, there's a lot of red clay, hard packed red clay, and they used that for bricks and buildings, and they used it for everything, and they used it to make houses. I've found whole houses made out of just rocks and red clay out in the woods before, but this was a chimney stack. A huge chimney stack that went up and was all made out of just natural rock and red clay. It was super cool, and everything I find, y'all, has already been metal detected, by tons of people previously, and I usually am lucky if I find anything because these things have been around for 50, 60 years or something. So people got on this a long time ago, way before me. So I'm just picking up the pieces of stuff other folks didn't find or didn't care to find or just didn't locate, whatever. But anyway, I found this pocket watch fob, it's called. I've never found a pocket watch. I found pieces of pocket watches, and I found a gold. The only thing gold that I've found so far has been a really cool thing that I thought was a pocket watch, but it was a woman's makeup compact, I guess you would call it. and it's super cool, and I'll do a video on it another time. But it's really cool, and it looks just like a stopwatch, and it opened up, but then I showed it to some people and it actually broke. So I'm afraid to kind of handle it now because there's nothing on it about who made it. There's a really cool barn custom like etching on the outside of it that's got an old log cabin and barn on it, and no one knows what it is. So I'll do a video on that soon because that's a really cool thing there, especially for women. Pretty neat little find there. Really super cool because it's the only thing gold that I've ever found, real gold. Tons of silver I've found, but anyway, today this is like the oldest thing I have found, y'all. The oldest coin I have found has been from 1918, and that's been the oldest coin so far. And so this piece of history I found is the oldest thing I have found. I've dated it back to about 1905 to 1909. And it's called a pocket watch fob. I guess before I show it to you, I'll give a little history on what I've learned so far about this. Back in the 16th century, they were using pocket watches by then. They were making them and using them, and they were usually made out of a precious metal like gold, or silver, something like that. From what I believe, it mostly gold was a big thing they used. But I'm not an expert, y'all, and I've never owned a pocket watch ever. So I'm gonna get one maybe if the economy ever clears up. But for now, it's just a cheap Timex, really super lightweight wristwatch that I wear. That's waterproof because I go in the water a lot. So that's my watch, y'all. Just that. It's the only jewelry I wear, really. So unless I'm wearing a flint-napped arrowhead that I wear sometimes out of a blue glass tequila bottle. That's pretty cool. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. Back from what I've learned is back in the 16th century, mid-16th century. There was a king that invented, finally, they had pocket watches. This fellow invented, a waistcoat that had a little pocket. And it was, the fob is a kind of a short word. They came about evidently from a German word called Fupppe, F-U-P-P-E. I'm not saying that right. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Fuppe or Fup or Fuppy or something. I don't know, but that was the name for a little pocket that's this king or somebody for him designed a pocket to put pocket watches in, because back then they were very delicate. They were delicate the whole time they were made. And if anybody, if it were to get exposed to the elements like rain or moisture, dirt, dropped on the ground, anything like that, they would get ruined pretty quickly. And these were very expensive and very fashionable. And it was a status symbol for men and even women, I believe. I'm not an expert on this, y'all. I'm just did the research on this stuff and learned a little bit about it, just a little bit. So I wanted to share it with you. So he designed this waistcoat with a pocket in it so you could keep your pocket watch safe in the pocket of your jacket, of your waistcoat. And from there it just became a thing of tradition, and it went through the Victorian era and all the way up to World War One. And World War One is when they invented the wristwatch. Right around the time of World War One, they came out with the wristwatch, and they learned that for a soldier in war, that a pocket watch was no good. Um, because it would just get, you had to pull it out and look at it, and it was just time consuming, and if you dropped it on the ground or something, get messed up. And with war, soldiers, everything has to be timed strategically when you're going to attack and withdraw, whatever. So time was very important. Timing is everything. One of my favorite songs from the movie Country Strong. I'm going to work on that and try to play that for y'all soon, hopefully, maybe. But anyway, time was very important in the time of war, especially. So with war and with railroads, time was super important. So in World War I, they invented the wristwatch, and then because of that, the pocket watch faded away. And the pocket watch, by the time of World War II, it was pretty much gone. Because even by then, if people were still wearing them and using them, because of World War II, they needed they needed nickel and certain metals for ammunition and weapons and so forth. So precious metals were in demand and stuff like that. So they just stopped making pocket watches, and it just became a thing of the past. They just weren't used anymore. They kind of disappeared, even though some people still wore them and you can still buy them today. It just pretty much went away by World War II. So World War I, the wristwatch being invented, kind of wiped out the pocket watch. But the pocket watch was invented, I think, back in the 1500s, I believe. Y'all, I'm not an expert, and what they discovered when they invented it, they realized that they needed to make it round, to fit, so that when you put it in your pockets, the watch would not get hung up on anything. Because when you're putting it in this waist pocket they designed back in the day, you didn't want it catching on anything or tearing up the pocket and falling through. So that's when they made it, round, so that and slim and smooth, so that it would slide into your pocket smoothly and pull out without catching on anything. So it couldn't have any sharp objects on it. It had to be round and slim and smooth to pull in and out of the pocket. So that's how the pocket watch got its round shape that it has. I wish I had one here to show y'all, but I just don't. And we're locked down, so I can't go anywhere to get one or anything. So, and I don't have the money anyway. So, but anyway, that's beside the point. The point is the watch was round, so it would fit in your pocket, and sometime around 1890, I believe it was, that Levi Strauss came out and started making jeans, for all the miners and farmers and all that, with the small pocket in the jeans, so that the miners and the farmers and everybody could use their pocket watches without them getting damaged. And so they weren't wearing waistcoats around. The overalls, I don't have a pair of overalls, or I would have worn them. But I believe the pocket in the overalls was for the pocket watch. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere in my research. So they had it for the overalls. You could put it in there, but the jeans, Levi Strauss made it the little pocket. And I'll stand up and show you right now, kind of my understanding of what they did with it back in the day, for not for fashionable, going to church, that kind of thing maybe, when you might have a suit on, that for farmers out in the field and stuff like that, miners, whatever, working men and women around, they put the small pockets. So I'll try to stand up here and show y'all. This is the pocket watch fob, and I'll show it to you closer in a minute. But and this is a padlock I just put on the end of this little guy, and this is a skydiving parachute packing ribbon from my old days skydiving. But this is the pocket watch fob right here. I hope y'all can see that just a little bit. I'm going to show it a lot closer, but say this was the actual pocket watch right here. If this was the pocket watch, you would have a ribbon here. A piece of leather was what this came with, a piece of leather. Okay, this fob right here. And this one's really, really cool, y'all, because it's got a pretty awesome history to it, and that's what I want to tell y'all about. But what they would do is they would just put their pocket watch here in that little pocket. Hope you can see that. And then that would just hang there. And they needed it to be big and heavy. You can. I hope y'all can see this here. I'm hoping y'all can see how that would be. But the pocket watch fob would hang right there, and when you needed your pocket watch to see what time it was, you would just pull that out. You would pull that out and look at the time. And if you had a really cool, special pocket watch, people would comment on that as well, and maybe you could tell them about where you got your pocket watch and whatnot. This is all coming unraveled, and I had this all set up to show y'all over here on this white towel for you. Really cool old pocket watch I found metal detecting too. But anyway, that's what they did, y'all. They had it just down in there, and just like that, and hanging out. Anyway, I'm going to leave that alone because this is falling apart on me. I just wanted to rig this up so y'all could see, how it was used. And I'm going to get the phone here and put some light on it and kind of show this to you here. And I guess before I do that, I'll give you a little, quick history on what this pocket watch fob is. I'll give you a little history on it first. Show it to you first, or I need to give you a little history on the company first. I'm gonna get some cheat sheets here, y'all, and put on some glasses too. This thing is super, super cool, y'all. It's got on the front of it. You know what? I'm just going to show it to you now. I'm just going to go ahead and show it to you now, and then we'll talk about the history of the company. But this thing is from the oldest shoe company, or the longest running shoe company in the history of the United States, is what I've seen. Okay, that's what I've learned so far. It was the longest running shoe company in the United States, and it was in business for 169 years, y'all. And that's just amazing. The company was, it's a long history on the company I'll have to get into, but what this company was it was the Stephen Putney Shoe Company out of Richmond, Virginia, and they started out in 1817. In 1817, this fella, Stephen Putney, traveled evidently from Massachusetts to Richmond, Virginia to sell shoes. And he met up with a guy named William Watts. And where's my glasses? I'll find them in a minute. When I can't think of anything else to talk about, I'll show you all the fob and everything and close up, and you can see how cool it is. But it was Stephen Putney traveled from Massachusetts to Richmond, Virginia, and met up with William Watts, and they formed a company in 1817, y'all. 213 years ago. That's a long time ago, y'all. That's some history right there. So that's how far back this thing goes. So 1817, these two guys met and formed their own shoe company in 1817. And then well, I guess I'll keep going with the history a little bit here. Where are my glasses? Oh, here are my glasses. I'm going to wear my reading glasses, y'all. Old man here. Okay, so 1817, the company was started with Stephen Putney and William Watts. At some point, another relative of the Putneys, I believe, was involved. Some sort of relative was in with the name of the company. And then I believe, what was it? Yeah, at some point along the way after 1817, one of the relatives of Putney's did something different, and then it just became Putney and Putney and Watts, and in 1861, I guess these guys were trucking along, making shoes and everything, and around 1861, they were selling shoes to the Southern Confederates, soldiers. This is why this is so cool to me, y'all. I was born and raised here in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia. And Atlanta, Georgia was a real pivotal point of the Civil War. We were really, from what I understand, the whole Civil War kind of hinged on what was going down here in Atlanta and in Georgia. I'm not an expert, y'all, but on the Civil War, but I am enjoying learning about it. And I hope y'all don't get mad at me for talking about stuff I don't know too much about. But anyway, in 1861, they were selling shoes to, and there's going to be links in the description, y'all, where y'all can go and see what I've looked at and read. Okay, so I promise there'll be a bunch of links, because I had to go to a whole bunch of different sites to kind of learn some of this stuff. And anyway, so in 1861, they were making shoes for the Confederate soldiers. In 1863, Captain Stephen Putney was reporting for duty to a facility where they made clothes and I guess ammunition and all sorts of stuff for the Confederate soldiers. And he was appointed captain and appointed, I guess, in charge of the shoe area, because he knew all about shoes. So he was doing that during the war, and they were making a lot of shoes for the Confederate soldiers and whatnot and stuff, and everything else, evidently. And then the war ended, and then and in 1865. Stephen Putney, I don't have a lot of information on William Watts, y'all, and I'm sorry about that. I didn't do as deep of a dive as I wanted to. I didn't want to make this too long, but anyway, in 1865, Stephen Putney requested and received amnesty from the President of the United States back then, Andrew Johnson. So he requested amnesty and received it. Because, see, he was working for the Confederates and the Union won. And I don't have all the details, y'all, but supposedly back then, if you owned property or businesses worth over a certain amount, I don't remember the amount. For some reason, I think $2,000 sticks in my head, but that can't be right. But anyway, if you owned a certain amount of property or business worth more than that amount, then I think they may have taken it. I'm not sure, and maybe just like giving you some land or something. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm not an expert, y'all, and I'm sorry about that. But and I will learn more about it for sure. But this is all I got for now, y'all, because it's really cool. But anyway, he requested the amnesty for President Johnson back then in 1865, and he received it, which I guess meant that he wasn't on the hook for losing everything he had or whatever. I don't know, but anyway, he got the amnesty. That's the point. So anyway, and then what happened here? So we got what do we got here? We got 1888. William Watts died, and when that happened, the company became the Stephen Putney Shoe Company, which is what's on the back of this pocket watch fob, and the picture on the front. So that happened in 1888, a long time ago. So it became Stephen Putney's Shoe Company, and then sometime around the very early 1900s or so, there was a shoe they made called the Battle Axe shoes, and these shoes were well known throughout the whole South. Evidently, most of the men, the farmers and stuff like that, they were boots. Battle Axe shoes were a form of a boot, a work boot, and for people farming, riding horses, just in general, just people out there in the woods, y'all, doing hard stuff. These were boots for tough times, and they were supposed to be made just super awesome, and they were called Battle Axe shoes because they were so tough and durable and well made, and they were super popular back in the day, which is just really neat to me, because it means that my grandfathers probably wore those shoes back then. I had two grandfathers, and they, one of them was in the war, and one of them worked as a railroad conductor, an engineer for the railroad. And so, I had, one grandfather that was a soldier, not in the Civil War, but he was in the Korean War, and in what else? He was in the Korean War for sure. Anyway, but I had two grandfathers, that were back in the day doing really cool stuff, and probably wore those boots. And that to me is just really cool, because one of them I don't remember at all, and one of them didn't ever talk much. The railroad conductor, my father's dad, he just kind of grunted a lot, and he was just my favorite guy in the world. He was just a super guy. He taught me how to fish and loved throwing a baseball with me, but he was a railroad engineer, and that was the thing I remember most about him, was coming into town on his caboose with his engineer hat on. He didn't have a rainbow afro. He wore the engineer hat and waved to us as little kids, coming into town in South Georgia. And he might have been wearing a pair of these Battle Axe shoes. So that's why it's so cool for me, y'all, that I found this thing, because it just really, I'm positive that some of my ancestors wore these shoes, because they were huge in the South. They were just really, really well-known shoes that everybody in the South wore, Battle Axe shoes. I never knew that till I found this thing. Okay, moving on. Let's see, I'm rambling. Okay, so that was around the 1900s. They started making the Battle Axe shoes. It became super huge and well-known all through the South and all over the United States, but huge in the South. And then in 1905, Stephen Putney died, and he is buried in the Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia. And I saw a lot of cool stuff there. Looks like there was a lot of soldiers buried there, and also it looks like there was a super cool pyramid built there with no concrete, which I thought was super awesome too, because I'm fascinated with ancient history, y'all, and the pyramids and all that stuff. The Nazca lines, all that stuff. I'm just fascinated with. So really cool that they have a pyramid there in the Hollywood Cemetery, and I love movies, so that this Putney fellow is buried in a Hollywood cemetery with a bunch of other soldiers and stuff, and they built a pyramid there to honor the soldiers. Thought that was super awesome to find out and see a picture of that pyramid. I'd love to go visit it sometime and really get a look at it in person. That would be super cool. Maybe, if it ever happens, if we ever come out of this crazy BS, black sheep stuff we got going on here. But anyway, so that's the history lesson. Y'all, the company stayed in business all the way till, the company stayed in business all the way till 1986. And that's when they closed their doors. And as far as I know, the building, I think, is still there in Richmond, Virginia. And the last I read, what I saw, there was some different businesses possibly going to be going in there in that building, and because it's a brick building, part of the building they made for these shoes to make them, it was real important that it be fireproof, because of back then in industrial times they would have a lot of fires, doing stuff, making things, spark something off, and all of a sudden the building's gone. So a big brick building was real important, so that hopefully it didn't catch on fire and burn down. So the Battle Axe shoe building, the Stephen Putney Shoes Company building where they made the Battle Axe shoes, was a huge brick building in Richmond, Virginia. Really cool, and I believe it's still there. I'm not positive on that, but I believe it's still there. So that's kind of the history of the company itself. And I guess I'll tell you this too before I show it to you. I kind of went backwards from everything I was planning to do here, y'all. The cool thing about this watch fob is that on the front of it is take these off. On the front of it is a really cool symbol of the boots, the Battle Axe boots, with a flap opened up on it, so you can see very well that it's a boot, a leather boot that kind of comes up over the ankle. And then behind that is a battle axe. So it's an axe and the shoe together on there. You'll see it in a minute. And then on the axe, on the front, it actually says solid across the axe blade in really small letters. You can barely see it. It's super cool. But the reason they made an emblem on the front where people would see is because back in the 1900s when they were making this thing, a lot of people in America couldn't read back then. A bunch of people couldn't read back then. So they would make these pocket watch fobs to be big and heavy. They needed to hang down flat against the body. So they made them pretty heavy. This thing's bigger than my wristwatch, and I'll show you that in a second. But it needed to be really heavy and flat and hang down. And this one here originally came with a leather strap for the Battle Axe shoes. And what they would do, the reason they made these, it's the most valuable thing I've found too, y'all. Out of all the stuff I have found, silver, real silver rings with almost look like diamonds all over them, but ended up not being diamonds. But really neat stuff I've found. This is the most valuable thing I have found. This thing sells for like $50-$60 on eBay. Turns out collectors go crazy over these things. They're super rare because what happened was back in the day, when the industrial age was going on and all that, and when people were making all these things, you used to have these world fairs and all. I'm sure y'all have heard of the old world fairs. I remember reading a book about, I think it was the Chicago World Fair. I don't remember what year it was, but I read a book a while back about the Chicago World Fair, I think. Some guy was running around. He had a hotel, and he was axing people and stuff. You know, shady dark arts type stuff. You know, real bad stuff this guy was doing because there was a fair going on, and everybody was running around not paying attention. So this guy was going around battle axing some people in his hotel or something like that. That was a crazy book, but pretty cool, but pretty morbid too. But anyway, they had world fairs, and you know, everybody would come from every place in the world and show their goods that they made. And so for back then, that's when the pocket watch fob was so important, because it actually became one of the first pieces of advertising for companies. And that really strikes home for me too. I own a business for 20 years now. I've had to do all sorts of advertising over the years, and still do. Well, not right now, our phone's not ringing, but I know a little bit about advertising and how you have to get creative with advertising if you want to keep a business running. You know, early to bed, early to rise, you know, work hard and advertise. It's critical that you advertise your business. And back then, the cool thing about this fob, this pocket watch fob, is that's what it was for. It wasn't just to pull your pocket watch out of the pocket. It was to, they gave it to people at these fairs and whatnot, all over the place. They would give these to people for their pocket watches, knowing that it was going to advertise their product, because it's hanging out of their pocket, you know, and people see it, and people ask about it. What is that? They want to look at it. And when they looked at it, on the front, if they couldn't read, they could see what it was. They could see that it was a battle axe and it was shoes. So it was battle axe shoes, and they knew that's what it was. How cool is that? One of the first forms of advertising. I just thought that was super cool, y'all. That's part of the fascination of this thing. And what's really neat, it was one of the first forms of advertising, but then, you know, and they didn't start doing that till right around the 1900s or so, maybe just a little bit before that or whatever, with the fobs and advertising anyway. That's when the fairs started happening. I'm not sure when the fairs started happening and all, but I just know that they started making these with this company around the 1900s or so, and so it was a great way to advertise. But then World War I hit, you know, and pretty right after they kind of got going with it, and then nobody wore a pocket watch anymore. So they stopped making these. So these things were only made for kind of a short period of time, and so they're really sought after by collectors, which is just really cool, because they just made them for a short period of time and then they stopped. It's almost like just like finding a rare coin. There's a lot of rare coins out there, and when people find them, they flip out. But still, there were probably a lot more rare coins made of certain ones that people are looking for than actually this thing here. I don't know how many of these they made, but anyway, that was the other cool thing, was the advertising aspect. That's what it was for. It served two purposes: to aid you in using your pocket watch for the working man out there, and also to advertise their product, which I just thought was just the coolest thing in the world. So anyway, without further ado, y'all, let me show you guys what this thing looks like close up, and you can check it out. I'll do that right now. Okay, y'all, let's see if we can get a look at this guy. Okay, there's my, just so you can kind of see size-wise, there's my wristwatch, my old Timex. That's my old one that broke on me. You can see that thing there. It's well, you can't really see how worn out it is, but so this thing is even bigger than my wristwatch, and it's really heavy too, y'all. So check this out. I'm gonna kind of come in here and get close on it and just kind of move around a little bit. I'll try to keep this secure, and you guys can kind of see some of the design on it. Can y'all see that solid on the axe blade there? Maybe, hopefully. I don't think this is going to focus up too good on that, but you know, we'll just kind of cruise around here and kind of show y'all some of the design of it. I don't know if you can see that word solid on there now. I don't know if that'll come out for you or not. Hopefully. It says solid right on the axe blade. And yeah, so you can see the boot and the battle axe. I really hope y'all can see this okay. Isn't that cool, y'all? Look at that. So that's the front of it. And yeah, that's a skydiving, look at that thing, my old Cypress skydiving piece. Check this out, y'all. Check this out here too. This is an old padlock I found, metal detecting. It is a, look at that, Elgin padlock. That thing's pretty cool. I'm not sure how old that is. I haven't done the full check on that yet. But anyway, let's get back over here. So you can see how big that is compared to a quarter. There's a quarter right there. And there's the front of the pocket watch fob right there. And I'll back up a little bit and you can kind of get a little better scale on it. Come in one more time on the front because this is kind of the coolest part. I'm really trying to get y'all some good shots of the front of this thing. It's just beautiful. Unbelievable. Just right next to that chimney that I was talking about. It's like the only thing I found there too. Let's flip this baby over. I'll show you the back side of it. And then we can get done here. But check this out, y'all. It's got the battle axe. Let's see. I'll go around here. I'm trying to get some good light on this for you. It's got the battle axe shoes on the top. Built on honor across the middle. And then at the bottom, okay, battle axe shoes there, built on honor. Down here at the bottom, you've got, it's harder to see, but it says Stephen Put. Is it going out of focus now? Y'all, I'm sorry that I'm not a better camera guy, but it's got on there Stephen Putney Shoe Company across the bottom, and then Richmond, Virginia. I'm not sure how much of this we'll be able to see. That's the Stephen Putney Shoe Company. This thing's not focusing good because I'm moving all around. And then underneath that, you have the Richmond, Virginia. Underneath that, back up a little bit and try to hold this thing a little more still. You might get a better picture of it, hopefully. Anyway, so that's the back, and what they did, they put that on the back for the people that could read. So if you could read, you could see that it was built on honor, those battle axe shoes, you could read about it, that it was Stephen Putney Shoe Company, Richmond, Virginia. But if you couldn't read, you had this sticking out, and you knew that it was battle axe shoes. How about that? For advertising, for people that couldn't read. How cool is that, y'all? Okay. Okay, y'all. So that was the end of the history lesson. I just wanted to show you guys that. I hope you enjoyed seeing it. So yeah, that was the really cool thing about finding that thing, was that it really is the oldest thing I've found yet, and the most valuable, which is insane because I've found things that are beautiful, y'all. Things are made out of gold and stuff that aren't as valuable as that. Pretty fascinating that something that's simple and old could be worth the most of everything that I've found. And I have found some super cool stuff, y'all. So yeah, the pocket watch fob, how cool is that? I thought it was fascinating. The battle axe shoes that my grandfathers probably wore, their dads probably wore here in the South. All the people building everything around where I live and everything else. I found this very close to where I live, just out in the woods. It was the only thing I found there. I was lucky to find that. And so yeah, that was really cool. I thank y'all for being here. I'm sorry that took so long. Anyway, so that's the end of this episode. Y'all take care. Hang tough out there, black sheep. Thanks for being with me here today on this Easter Sunday during this crazy business we're going through. Y'all hang tough. Hopefully things are going to get better soon. We're going to get through all this blah, blah, black sheep business together. I promise. Y'all hang tough. Take care, and we'll see you next time.